What's the difference between prostitution and solicitation of prostitution in Texas? Solicitation of prostitution and prostitution used to be the same offense in Texas. They were both Class B misdemeanors for first-time offenses. That means they were punishable by up to 180 days in jail and up to a $2,000 fine. In fact, most first-time offenses did not result in convictions or jail time. So you might get probation, you might get deferred adjudication, you might even get an agreed lesser offense, or even a conditional dismissal. However, Texas changed that law a few years ago. Now, solicitation of prostitution is a state jail felony. Even for the first-time offender, it is a felony offense. Prostitution itself remains a Class B misdemeanor. It seems unfair to many that the men who are soliciting prostitution typically are being punished more harshly than the women who might be on the other end of that transaction or would-be transaction. However, Texas legislators decided that it's more appropriate to punish the Johns more harshly because without a marketplace for the prostitution, there would be no prostitution to begin with. So whether you agree with it or not, that's the current state of the law in Texas. The real problems become with how prosecutors are handling these cases. You'll run into many prosecutors who are not willing to create a pathway that would avoid a conviction. Additionally, I see a disproportionate number of solicitation cases that involve veterans. And so far, prosecutors have been unwilling to give any sort of leeway to veterans who find themselves now facing a felony charge. If you've been charged with solicitation of prostitution, it's important to understand that prosecutors do treat these cases differently, that they get marching orders from the top saying the legislators created this law the way it is, and we've got to follow that law and continue to prosecute based on the way the law is written. You have to understand it will be very difficult to get a prosecutor to avoid a conviction or consider reducing the charge. And that does mean sometimes these cases have to be set for trial. The other important thing to understand about both prostitution cases and solicitation of prostitution cases is that there is no actual exchange required. There's no actual physical contact required. All that has to happen in order for you to be prosecuted for prostitution is for there to be an agreement to exchange something of value for a sexual act. I've seen gifts, I've seen money considered as part of that transaction, and an offer to do something of a sexual nature. Again, there doesn't have to be any sort of physical contact, any sort of actual sexual conduct. There's a misconception that you can distinguish between a prostitute and the police by asking to see a certain body part. None of these things are actually true. That's not part of the state's burden. All they have to prove is there was an agreement for something of value for a sexual act. This is often accomplished through phone calls, through text messages, and by someone showing up at a hotel room door. Most all of the sting operations we see involve police officers getting on some sort of website or list crawler and making themselves available for individuals to contact. And during that conversation, they will say things that even in coded language refer to an exchange of something of value for sexual conduct. So don't be misled. You can't say, I'll give you 100 roses for an hour of your time, or it's 20 roses for an in-call and 40 roses for an out-call. None of those things will help you escape criminal prosecution, because all that will happen is a detective will get up and say, this is coded language for someone wanting to give something of value for a sexual purpose. If you've been charged with solicitation of prostitution or prostitution in North Texas, give us a call. We have successfully defended these cases. We made this video in response to a question we received on this channel. If you have a question about criminal law in Texas or federal criminal law, drop a comment below. We'll address it in a future video.